बड़ा दिन है। 100 करोड़ वैक्सीनेशन का मार्क हिट हुआ है और हमारी कॉलीग तमन्ना इनामदार इस समय एक एक्सक्लूसिव बातचीत कर रही हैं सीरम इंस्टीट्यूट के हेड मिस्टर आदार पूनावाला से।
Has today. Well, it is of course a team effort. It is government policy, it is our healthcare workers, it is the prowess of our medical fraternity. But if we were to give the lion's share of the credit to one company, one team and one individual, it would perhaps be Mr. Adar Poonawalla, because of the 100 crore doses that have been administered today and counting, a lion's share of them, a majority of them, over 80%, have been made in Pune's Serum Institute of India's factory and our Covishield. We're speaking with Mr. Poonawala today on this occasion. Adar, thank you so much for joining us on ET Now and ET Now Swadesh. Congratulations to you and your team. I want to start by asking you to go back about 18-20 months, about 2 years, when you first took that bet to start producing large doses of Covishield without knowing what came next.
Thank you for those kind words, but you know, it's the credit to all the healthcare workers and Modi ji's vision of getting the ministries and government of India agencies and others to work together with manufacturers and everyone who finally administered the doses that deserve the credit. I'm just someone who, to answer your question, took multiple bets actually, not just one bet, in early 2020 when the WHO said there's a pandemic and there is a disease that is spreading faster and deadlier than anything else that they've seen before. So, you know, I had a choice whether to just wait on the sidelines or take a bet early on, invest a lot of money that I didn't have. We went to the Gates Foundation, COVAX, and many other countries to also support us. The government of India gave us an advance also in 2021 to scale up further, which we're very grateful for. And as a result, you know, here we are today with so many challenges that you know, the media had been following from different regulatory approvals, and we had a fire as well in January, sadly, at our campus. And we had to overcome a lot of challenges that I personally had never had to deal with in my life. And, you know, we came through it. We got over all of that. And now we're making more than 220 million doses per month and have rapidly increase the uptake so that by the end of December, you have everybody almost who's taken the first dose gets a second dose as well by then. So let's wait for that to happen as well. And that will be another moment, I think, to celebrate.
Absolutely. Adar, you talked about so many challenges on the way. What's the toughest part after the second wave started hitting? When suddenly there was a lot of more enthusiasm to take the vaccine and we just didn't have the requisite doses as per our population. I recall that you spent a few weeks in the United Kingdom at that time and there was speculation that you're in the UK because you're just getting too many calls from state governments, from governments all over the world, from companies saying, give us the vaccine. Tell us about how tough that time was and what you told people then.
That was a tough period because, you know, I had to explain to a lot of my foreign partners and others, which is why I went to the UK. They couldn't travel, you know, there were travel restrictions. Whether it was AstraZeneca or other donors who had supported us, that I need to vaccinate my country to a certain level before I can come back to you. That was initially very hard for anyone to digest because everyone wanted the vaccine. But I went through that. It was particularly a tough moment personally and professionally, but I can understand that. And when people realize that there's nothing beyond a point I can do myself, everyone was super supportive and said, yes, we'll wait for our turn, but just give us, you know, a schedule and a timeline when we can get the vaccine. And that's just what we did. And eventually we satisfied everybody. And now the only ones we need to satisfy are the foreign countries who are still waiting for the doses, and that will also happen in November and December. So we're now in a good place. But yes, that was a very tricky time because there weren't many answers I could offer people except to buy some time so that I can satisfy everyone, whether it's state governments, private sector, foreign countries, you name it.
Yeah. Adar, was this in any way a profitable venture? I know it is a very emotional one, definitely, because this is in a true sense service to the country. Today, India is not going around with a bowl asking countries for vaccine because you've made what we need and the most of it. But was it a profitable venture at all? You're a businessman at the end of the day. Was that motive there at the back of your mind or not at all?
No, of course, because every business has to look at reinvesting their profits. I mean, we invest 95% of all our profits every year in building capacity, buying technology, employing, we've got 8,000 employees, which we've increased by another 1,200 actually now during the COVID pandemic because we needed more hands on deck. We have made profits. Initially, there was a discussion on the pricing and all of that. We were just trying to make sure that the pricing was such that it was sustainable, that we wouldn't make losses, and we achieved that. If you look at, what vaccines were being sold at overseas, it's not based on a cost plus structure. It's based on how much value there is to a commodity. Of course, no one wants to take advantage of the situation. We priced our vaccine in conjunction with the government, most of it at 200 rupees, which is what the government has been buying it at. In the private market, we've hardly sold anything because, when everyone was getting it free, no one wanted to pay for it. So despite that policy being available, we hope to make profits now in the exports. We did what we had to do for our nation. And now we're looking forward to exports, both to make some profits and also, to support those countries. Not to say that we haven't made profits so far, but that's just been enough to put back into the raw materials and capex, which we're happy to do to have expanded our capacity. In fact, at a point, I was very vocal that the industry needs advances from the government, which the government very generously and nicely supported us and gave. We had to borrow money at a point where, when we had to scale up, we didn't have enough money to buy enough raw materials from the US and other countries, which was also hampering our scale up in April, May, as you can remember. So all that took its course as well. That was itself another challenge.
Yeah. Where are we with the exports? We know that exports have now been allowed. The COVAX alliance, the Gavi alliance is waiting and also depending once again on Covishield and Serum Institute to deliver. So can you give us any update on where we are with the exports? Are they on track?
Well, the health minister has announced that we will resume exports in the end of October, and then November, December will pick up. I think in January 22, You're going to see much larger exports. I think we want to be doubly sure, and the government is absolutely right here, where they want to make sure there's enough stock for the country so that a repeat of not having enough stock in a third wave or a fourth wave or any wave that comes, the country is secure. And you're already seeing a lot of stock built up. Today, the vaccination rate is lower than what stock we have. So, under Modi ji's leadership, we have secured enough vaccine stock now. We've got a 3-week to a month of a buffer stock based on the vaccination rates that you're looking at right now. So we're in a very comfortable situation. And as that becomes better and better, we'll see more exports coming up. And don't forget, you've got other Indian vaccine manufacturers also who are scaling up. So that'll add to the overall stock position that we have in the country.
Yes. Yes. Your word, Adar, on what we saw in terms of vaccine discrimination, I would call it. And we saw that situation with the United Kingdom where they wouldn't for a while accept Covishield. That did get resolved eventually, but then it turned out that they will accept Covishield, but not if it's administered in India. And it's not just the United Kingdom. Different countries seem to have different rules which are based not necessarily on science but on their perception sometimes. Your take on this as a major vaccine manufacturer?
So I'll tell you, this is what I've been telling the WTO, WHO, EMA, and the UK as well in my discussions when I've had that with the heads of these organizations, that we need to sign, not only for this pandemic, but for future pandemics, a sort of treaty, like we have done on climate change and so many other commitments and pledges, that we should all pledge as countries that during pandemics and outbreaks, global harmonization of regulatory should be there. So that means acknowledging each other's vaccine certificates, acknowledging the quality standards set by the main regulators of these countries. If you do all of that, it addresses all these issues which can still come up for all the new vaccines that are coming up, whether it's from other vaccine manufacturers or my own new vaccines. Now, for example, as you rightly mentioned, Covishield is approved in almost every country, but you know what we all went through for that. Covovax, which is our next vaccine, we hope that won't have to go through the same hurdles, and countries will accept vaccines that are approved by the WHO. You've got other Indian vaccine manufacturers with very good quality as well. As soon as they're approved by the WHO, I hope that all the other countries will approve, the vaccine certification, because after all, it's an injustice to the citizens and beneficiaries who take the vaccines. After all, what do they know? They're just taking a vaccine that's available to them. And it's very unfair that whether they're students or business travelers or tourists or whatever, have to suffer because countries have not got their act together. So my sort of wish list or naive plea to the countries would be that they must sign a pact, a treaty, which acknowledges each other's quality standards. And you spend time doing that. Come to a certain quality standard that everyone accepts. WHO is a great benchmark for that. And that's what they should follow.